Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another video. I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison, talk about some of the progress that I have made and some of the progress that I have not made on working on my golf swing. The swing on the left is dated September 6, 2018, and the swing on the right is as of today, which would be April 22nd, 2019. So let's go ahead and play them, and then we'll go into some detail. Let's do a little half-speed action. Okay, now let's watch the current swing. Actually bring that one up to full speed. And we'll do half-speed again. Okay, so I think that at this point in time, the swings display the two primary things that I'm working on. And these things really go back to the information I got from Monty Scheinblum and the lesson that I took with him online. So a huge props to Monty. And what I want to talk about are two specific things. The first is my right knee. And then the second is my right elbow. Okay, so for starters, what I want to do is watch how I move my right knee here. We're going to even bump this down a little bit more in my old swing. Okay, so some pretty extreme movements. The circle is kind of giving us... I'm going to reposition that actually. Instead, I'm going to draw a line right here on the front of the right knee. Okay, now let's watch it one more time. The first thing to note is that in the backswing, there's actually very little movement of the right knee. So let's just take it through the backswing to the top, right about there. So at this point, I'm actually still on that exact point. You know, so there really has been basically no change whatsoever. I mean, maybe just a slight change in my right knee, but very, very little straightening of the right knee. And frankly, I probably have too much flex to begin with. I maintain that flex to the top of the backswing. And then obviously, before I even, once I get to about this point, right, watch, let's take it nice and slow. And what I want you to watch for is the moment at which this right knee starts moving forward. Okay, so as I come up right about there, even already before I've completed the top of my backswing, it's starting to move forward. And then it really, I mean, that is some tremendous right knee action right there. So certainly I think the cause of my problem in my early extension is really sourcing with my right knee. Okay, so what I want, one of the things I've been kind of contemplating and thinking about is if you think about a door has hinges that it is posted upon, and it rotates around those hinges. Well, if you're going to open, let's imagine that, you can't really see it so well from this side-on view, but let's imagine that there's a face-on view. Let's see if I can pull one up. Okay, so let's look at this setup. Imagine that this side of my body is the hinges are on this side, and then my body is the door, and it is going to open and close. Okay, now you want to kind of pivot around your spine as the central axis, so that would be the point around which the hinges are secured. Now, I think the primary misconception that I've got going on is that when I initiate the downswing, I am using my right knee kind of as this pivot, you know, or as this point around which I'm powering the turning of the swing. right? So if we go back to this photo, this part of my knee is really coming out, right? And I think instead, a better way to think about the rotation would be to have this stay more stable and instead focus on the left knee and the left hip clearing out backwards, okay? So it's just kind of a, you're still accomplishing the same type of rotation, right? If we look at this picture, it's kind of in a, I would believe this would be a counterclockwise fashion, but you're just pulling the left side of the body back and around. Okay, now let's watch how I use the right knee in the updated swing. Okay, draw a line again, and let's watch. Okay, let's watch it now. So for starters, I think the first thing to note is that there's quite a bit more action of the right knee driving backwards, right? So if I find a similar position, look at how much away I have worked away from the golf ball. So I have really focused on straightening the right knee a little bit, but also opening this hip backwards, okay? And now my left knee is actually kind of similar, and maybe it's worked out a little bit more. But, I actually find it kind of interesting that this swing over here on the left is a longer swing, but the swing on the right, I actually have better hip turn. I have more hip turn here on the right compared to the left, which I think is kind of interesting and definitely something that I'm working towards. All right, now what I want you to do is watch how my knee works here in transition. Okay, now it certainly still comes forward. It still works forward, but it kind of reaches this point here where it's kind of above the balls of my feet, and it stops. And this is something I've really worked hard to achieve, where it regains flex, but then at some point it starts moving towards the target line, and it stops moving towards the golf ball, okay? And really, what I'm really trying to focus on here is not so much a right knee feel, it's that I'm replacing, this feeling of driving the right knee forward over here, and I'm replacing that with really trying to keep this hip right here. I want to keep it in place. Okay, and then I want to take this left hip and pull it back while this stays firm. So again, that analogy of a door, right? If my body is a door, my arms are a door, the club is part of the door, and my spine is the hinge that it is anchored around and is swinging around. Well, what I really need to do is to pull open the left side of my body. So as you watch that left hip really start to disappear back and pull back. So even right here you can see my left cheek. Now over on this side, I would say my hips really aren't, the only reason you can see the left side is because my right knee has gone so far forward, right? So, and what that does, the cause and effect there, is that it pulls the lower part of my body back instead of going up front, which means that my shoulders have to stay in this direction in order to continue to make contact. So that is kind of the hip action in some detail. Now let's talk about the elbow and how that's related. Okay, so let's follow up to the top. Now from this position, I want you to track where the right elbow is, specifically kind of in this area, this first part of the transition. Watch what's happening to my right elbow. Okay, you can see that there's a lot of movement this way for my hips and my knees. Okay, so my right elbow, if you can notice, is kind of lingering here, kind of in this upper rib area And so if I pause here, let's just keep an eye on this position right there. Let's find the same thing over here on my updated swing. Now, one of the things to notice is I don't go back as far. That's just because I'm still working on things. But actually, I would wonder if I might even have better ability to make some of this happen. Now, I've got a little bit better shallowing action. And if we try to pause here, I think the primary thing, these two positions could not be more dissimilar. Look at how the right elbow, see how you can see a bit of my back protruding out? Now, some of this might be camera angle related, but, and then also, too, just the angle of the shaft has laid down compared to over here, where the shaft is very steep. To me, this position with my right elbow being stuck, right, and that's because I've got no room. With my hip and my knee crashing forward so severely, there is simply no room for my right elbow to move in front of my body and swing around my spine. It just gets stuck. And I end up doing kind of this, it almost looks like the same motion you would use to dribble a basketball, where you're kind of pushing, your tricep is extending really hard down at the golf ball, right? And look even here at impact. Look at how fired my tricep is. Even here right at impact, my tricep has fired hard down at the golf ball. Whereas one of the things I'm working over here is to actually, I still have some of that straightening, but I'm trying to achieve a situation where I maintain more width. And actually, I think I could even do better than this, right? I would love to see my right arm kind of more in this position, and then the left arm kind of coming even a little bit more out here, and then the forearm, my forearm here. So instead of in this position. But again, my intention here is to try to get this elbow forward on or in front of my hip. If we back it up over here to a similar position, you can see how I'm really kind of just stuck up on the side of my body. Whereas here I'm trying to drive in front of my hip. And then from this position, all I really need to do is just turn. So you can see my shoulders turning, hopefully my spine is turning, and I certainly have improvements to make. But that's really kind of the big changes I'm working on, right? Changing how my lower body hinges so that my right knee is much less active, and instead my left hip is pulling back and around. And then second, I want to replace that with my right elbow occupying that position that was previously held by my hip, and really swinging freely around my spine. So I hope you guys found this helpful. It's kind of a very deep dive and update on my early extension changes and some things I'm working towards. So please let me know your thoughts and comments down below, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.